Tarot for me is such a source of wisdom, healing, guidance, creativity. It is an incredible perspective shift. I need it sometimes because I get fixed and locked into ideas and in my understanding of particular situations, so it's necessary for me to reach for my cards and sometimes just open up that perspective so that I can see things from a different angle. A lot of the magic that I get from the practice of tarot comes from the individual decks that I use. I find art to be an incredible trigger for change, something that truly does move the human spirit and inspires and just makes me excited to reach for particular cards. For me, the artwork in cards is so important, so necessary, and it's what I most look forward to when working with a new deck. It's not super easy these days to find those decks that I just love. It's not that easy anymore. It used to be, but now, as with all things, the artwork, the art style present within many mainstream decks in particular have shifted, and I'm no longer seeing that fine art vibe, that ambiguous, mysterious kind of art style that just absolutely just draws me in. Now, there are still those decks being made. They are indie decks, most of them, and I just feel such a draw, such an attachment to that type of deck, that type of art style. But of late, I have felt a bit parched, because I look out at what's available and nothing's really calling to me. Having said that, sometimes when it comes to my choice of tarot decks, I like to get into my own way. There are times where I have resisted a deck because I didn't like the artwork, only to then receive the deck in some way, shape or form and be utterly amazed, surprised even. It still boggles my mind to this day. The art within tarot decks matters. There is a beautiful subjective quality to the art found within tarot decks. There is something for everyone when it comes to tarot. There is your style of artwork. Whether you found it or not, you better believe that it's out there. It's there. You just haven't found it yet. So there seems to be something for everyone's taste. And over the years, and I can honestly say this because I've been working with the cards for a very, very long time, I've seen several iterations of tarot decks and several seasons and several eras, if you will. There were multilingual borders, there were cartoon style depictions, there were heavily esoteric symbolic themes with very little vivid artwork, there was rudimentary art, and then there were collage, and then there was photorealism, and then there was realism, and then there was photography style decks, and then there were the fine art decks. I do love a richness in art. Modern art doesn't inspire me, speak to me at all. I need to be close to the muse, if that makes sense. And when I see beautiful art that has taken time to curate and to make and to present, it feels like something of a divine gift, because somebody's talent, somebody's beautiful, innate, rare talent crafted those images that then get placed upon that cardstock, and then I buy it and I shuffle it and I'm in touch with that person's gift, that person's genius, that creative essence, that divinity in a sense. So for me, fine art is where it all is, and I tend to feel very attracted to fine art decks. I completely understand that art is subjective and that we are all drawn to a different style of art. When I was creating my own tarot deck, the Bonestone and Earthflesh tarot deck, which you see here, I went for the art that I love the most. Watercolor and line drawing, very fine art by Victorian. It was so important for me to get the right type of art that I absolutely love and adore, because that reflects who I am and what I love about tarot the most. The art present in tarot decks actively does something to me. It is one of those things that helps me to move through my intuitive faculties. The colors, the images, the symbols, they speak to me in particular ways, but not every deck delivers the same punch as I need. I gravitate to very, very specific decks, and I'm going to show you some of the decks that I really love to work with that do exactly that. Their artwork, in some way, shape, or form, grab me and take me on that ride, take me on that journey, get me thinking, and get me connected to my intuitive faculties so that I can layer my readings with, you know, foundational interpretations, a little nuance, and a little intuitive energy woven in there for really good measure. Here is the Darkness of Light Tarot. There is something so beautifully spooky about this. It is one of those very shadow style decks that actively speak to a very non-shadow part of me. It's a really interesting thing working with this deck because it's very limited in its color palette, but there's something about it that sort of draws me in and has me just looking a little closer at the images, at the stance, at the placement of each character within the image. It tells a story. The image tells a story. That's what I'm looking for. Now, the Darkness of Light Tarot does this in a very, very, subtle way, but I'm going to give you some more examples of what I mean when I say that tasty, punchy artwork. Here we have the Journey to Egypt Tarot. And, oh my gosh, this deck, there's a little bit of nudity, so just please be warned. This deck is just so beautiful. I'm absolutely terrified of reading with it because it is so beautiful. Nevertheless, I personally don't have an affinity with Egyptian anything. I'm curious, as many are, but I don't feel like I gravitate towards Egyptian mythology or, the history as much as I do with other areas and other pantheons and other places in the world. But I cannot look away from this deck. There's so much there. Each card is like a window into a scene, and it's an incredible piece of art. Look at that. So beautiful. Here we have the Brady Tarot, and I don't typically gravitate towards animal-based decks. There's something about it that just doesn't necessarily speak to that part of me. But this deck took my fancy straight away. It's very Thoth-based. Even though I'm a writer-style reader, I still absolutely loved it. There's such a gorgeous energy to the deck, and the Brady Tarot just does something to me. Like, it really conveys a message when I'm in the right headspace to receive it. And because I'm a mood reader, I really need to wait for the right mood to read with certain decks. And I suppose that's why I have such a big collection. Here we have the Victorian Romantic Tarot by Barber Studios. Oh, very classic style of art. Very beautiful. I like to use this deck for relationship readings and personal reflections on feelings. Whenever I've had an argument with my lover or I'm feeling a little emotionally moody, I tend to come to this deck and just let it remind me of perspectives that I might have lost and things that are
constantly overlooked by me because I'm too busy focusing on other things. It's a beautiful deck. They did a wonderful job on it. Here we have the Cheimonette Tarot. Oh, I've had this deck for a while. A long time, in fact, and I still absolutely love it. There's such a facey nature. It's very watercolor play. It's very beautifully colored. Lots of symbolism. Lots of ambiguity as well. Beautiful, beautiful deck. Those of you who have been around for a while will recognize this deck. This is the Shadowscapes Tarot. It's the backing of it. Stephanie Law, I believe, was the artist responsible. This was a collaboration with Barbara Moore. And look, the only complaint that I have about this deck, and it is a complaint that I've heard many a reader say, that because of the intricate nature of the artwork and all the tiny details, that it would have been nice to have made the cards bigger, much bigger than they are. Here we have the Muses Tarot by Chris Ann. Not my typical style of art that I gravitate towards, however, it does offer a little something. Chris Ann does an incredible job when it comes to her tarot decks. I really like her Lightseers Tarot as well. It is one of my favorites, but I don't have it up here with me at the moment. Such a beautiful deck, really well made. Just lovely. I'm pretty fortunate to have a pretty chunky collection of decks, Tarot, Oracle, Lenormand. I tend to focus a lot on Tarot, but I have almost an equal amount of Oracle cards because Oracle cards came in there in the end, eventually. I held off on playing with Oracle cards until I was in my 20s because I don't know, I didn't feel a connection to them, but now I do, so I collect them as well. But of the decks that I've shown you, I've had them closer to the front of my collection, and so I've reached for those particular decks. However, there are so many decks that I have in my collection that are just so deliciously tasty. The El Goliath Tarot is one of them, and several of the Layla and Olive decks, and the Japri Tarot, and the Crystal Visions, which was one of my favorites back in the day. Even the Illuminati Tarot has a little something there. The Wild Unknown, which just swept across the tarot world so vigorously, and everyone fell in love with it. It wasn't a deck that I initially gravitated towards. I don't tend to go where the hype is, but then I went back to it and I'm like, I don't have anything in my collection like this, and I love it. I don't typically adore like the Fountain Tarot, for instance, or you know, there's a Moony one out there, I can't remember the name of it. I own both of them and they're beautiful decks, don't get me wrong, but they don't offer what I need, what I'm looking for in a deck. I need to hear the art in my ear. Like, I need it to filter down into the language center of my brain so that I can hear it. And once I hear it, boom, we're in business. Here's a quick look at the Dame Darcey Tarot, which is so far outside of my chosen art style, and yet I have two copies because she really spoke to me. The Bonefire Tarot over here by Gabby Angus West. When I first saw this deck, I didn't react at all to it. It wasn't until I went home and had a little think about it and it played around in my brain that I decided that I needed to get this deck. And it's been a favorite of mine. It's also a favorite because of the size. I have rather tiny hands, and so it's one of the decks that I can actually shuffle easily and well. But it's vintage tattoo art, and there's a lot of symbolism hidden in each of the cards. So it just really kicks it off strong for me, and it does a hell of a reading. It's a really great all-rounder deck. The art within tarot decks also serves another function for me, and that is determining whether or not a deck is an all-rounder and can be used for any client, for any question, for any style of reading, or whether or not it is an attuned deck, a deck with artwork and a natural feel or a vibe that correlates to a very specific theme, like love or finance or education or travel or spirituality or shadow work, just to name a few. So art goes a long way in helping you understand the nature of the cards, what they can be used for, and in conveying, countless intuitive messages that help you to really round out a reading. Art in tarot is incredibly important, and I'm rather discerning with the style of art that I like to go for, and I would say the same for many collectors and many readers out there. We like what we like. I speak for many when I say that I make no apologies for the type of deck and art style that I like, because it's my style of artwork, it's my tarot practice, and when you're a reader, you really need to protect that integrity. Don't get swept away in the crazes and the trends and all of that, especially if decks genuinely don't speak to you. Like, I've gotten caught up in that in the past. That's probably why I have the Fountain Tarot in my collection. I just don't work with that deck at all. It is a collector's piece only for me. And I've got a couple of others in my collection just like that, but I'm not sad that I have them, and they do occupy a really nice spot in my collection, rounding it out in a really unique way.
Thank you so much for sitting here with me for this little chat. It's always nice to talk about our own personal tastes and our own personal styles when it comes to the practice of tarot. Because art is so subjective, there are so many different styles of art, and people gravitate to all different types of art. And in this video, I've just referenced my own preferences, my own style of art. And I'm very keen on hearing where other people are with their style of art. Some people really love the modern look of art. Some people really like the cartoon depictions. Some people really, really just gel well and get the most out of that, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So when it comes to the art that you personally gravitate to within your tarot practice, you do you. There is no right or wrong in that arena. You just go where your desire takes you and where your eye just lands in a really beautiful way, because that's the magic of tarot. There is something out there for everyone. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that little notification bell if you haven't already, and I'll be back next week with another video.